And we'd just crossed the coast of Holland, and we just crossed the border of Holland into Germany when the Focke-Wulf 190s jumped us, and no escort. And they knocked the living daylights out of us. And you got to understand, the bombers have to stay put. And we're firing at a moving target. Those guys are coming right in at us.
Yeah.
And so my group sent up 20 aircraft. They knocked 13 of us down.
Wow.
So, and we got shot up pretty bad. Got hit with incendiaries. Plane caught on fire, of course. All that hydraulic fluid on there from hydraulic lines. So we were fighting the flames. We still had our bombs aboard. And the ball turret gunner came forward through the flames, and we told him to get back and get his parachute, because we were burning like crazy, and trying to get the fire to go out. And all of a sudden I see the co-pilot get up. Well, before that, I tried to jettison the bombs. They wouldn't release. I tried to open the bomb bay doors for a bailout. They wouldn't open. So then I look around, I see the co-pilot jump up on my radio table, open the upper hatch, and go out the upper hatch. And like I say,
Once the co-pilot.
pilot or co-pilot, he's time for
It's
this boy
time
to
to
go.
go. Yeah.
Well, I climbed up on the table. I put down these things, put on my chute. Well, I'm short, so now you can imagine that plane's doing over 200 miles an hour. And I got my head stuck up out of the top of it with my back toward the front. So it's pushing me back,
Yeah.
and I got a chest chute on.
Yeah.
So the chest chute is in the aircraft, and from there on, I'm out of the aircraft. So I had to push myself back with one hand and lift that chest chute out. And when I did, then I grabbed a hold of the upper guns, and then the wind just flipped me around. So I'm hanging on to the upper guns. Then I'm trying to think, maybe this wasn't too smart. I look back and I see that big old double tail back there.
Yeah.
You know, I figure if I let go, I might hit into that.
Yeah.
And then the engines were still running. And I figure if I go to the side, I'm going to go right into those engines.
Yeah.
And I figure maybe this wasn't too good an idea, you know. And next thing I know, I find myself at about 14,000 feet without an airplane. So,
Jeez.
hunting for ripcord. The plane exploded, and the tail gunner, the one-waist gunner were killed on the attack. The ball gunner were killed in the crash. The other waist gunner got wounded, just jumped out his window. And the engine, navigator and bombardier went out the nose reel, and the pilot and engineer went down with it.
Oh my gosh.
So
How many were on the plane?
5 went down with it, and 5 of us got out.
So it's a 10-man crew.
Yes. And
So you're holding on to the guns. You're outside on
Right.
the top of the plane
Right.
when it explodes.
yes, apparently. I mean, I don't. That's the only thing I can figure. When I was finding myself falling, I noticed my nose had started bleeding and so forth. And I felt that was probably from the concussion. I had blood all up the side of my face, and I didn't know whether I was hurt or not. I didn't feel any pain.
As you're falling through the air.
Yes, yes,
Let's just
Yeah.
pause a second.
yeah,
You're hanging onto the plane.
yeah,
Something happens.
Right.
200 miles an hour.
200 miles per hour.
Right.
You get knocked out.
right,
You wake up
right,
and you're free falling.
right.
That's
And
a distinction there.
That's right. That's right. I'm free falling, and I feel something all over my face. And I reach up, and
It's
and,
blood.
and then I realize I'm no longer on the aircraft at that point.
Oh my god.
So I looked for a ripcord. And I popped the ripcord at
Yeah.
that point.
Good,
Fortunately, it's a
good thing you woke up.
beautiful thing watching that old parachute go out.
And
Big
shoot.
plate.
Yeah.
And so I'm floating down, and I look around, I see I'm heading right for this big old lake. And I thought to myself, you know, probably going to land right in the middle of that son of a gun, and I don't swim
Oh no.
after getting out of that miserable airplane. And so, fortunately, in my parachute instruction, classroom instruction,
Yeah.
climb up one side of the shroud lines to keep you from swaying, cross your arms, and it'll turn you around. So I did that, and I got away from the fake end of it. I'm getting down around 2,000 or so feet. I can start picking out all kinds of objects. I see all these people running toward where I'm approximately going to land.
Yeah.
And right away, my thought is that I'm over Germany.
Right.
So I just figure, well, they say your whole life flashes in front of you, but it doesn't. I mean, so anyway, I as I got getting lower and lower, and I remember that first jump breaking my leg. So I figured I got this all figured out. I'm coming in forward in a forward position. I'm going to hit likely and roll.
Yeah.
Well, right before I hit, I yanked my legs up and landed on my butt. Busted 3 ribs and almost broke my back.
Yeah.
But I had the thought of that other jump in my mind. At that point, the people were almost on top of me.
Sure.
So I pulled the old 45, which you could see. I pulled the 45 out, threw around in the chamber, because we'd heard that the Germans were killing the flyers.
Yep.
And I never could hit anything with that 45, but I figured with that number of people, and they're going to try to kill me. I got, I forget how many, 8 rounds, I think, in that thing. I'm going to get somebody. I'm going to take somebody.
Is this during the day or at night?
During the day.
During the daytime?
Oh, yeah, in the morning, right before lunch.
Wow.
And so one of the fellas, when I pulled the pistol, they all stopped. Then one of them moved out from the crowd and started yelling, "Hollander, Hollander." Well, that sounded enough like Holland that I, figure. So I motioned him forward, and he came forward, and he says, "Are you blessed?" And I figured, blessed? So I reach in and get my language book out. Go through there. I don't see anything about being blessed in there.
You were definitely blessed.
Yes. But there's nothing on there about being blessed. So I figure, well, this is part of the Europe. It's mostly Catholic. So maybe it's got something to do with the Catholic religion, which I'm not.
Yeah.
And I did have something on there that said I was Protestant. So I looked him right in the eye and said, "No, ich bin Protestant." And he looks at me, and I look at him. Neither one of us knew what we were talking about. So finally he says, "Come." And they took me up to a farmhouse.
Wait, so did you figure out what he meant by
No.
blessed?
No. They took me up to the farmhouse, gave me a cup of coffee and a sandwich. And then a member of the Home Guard came in a uniform with a rifle and with the famous words, "For you the war is over." And then meanwhile, I'd passed my pistol off to the crowd when I realized that they were Dutch. So he says, "Come with me." And so we started walking down the road. And he says, in here was some sort of a civilian camp. And the people were still following. They said, "No, don't go in there." So I just turned to him and told him, "No, I'm not going in there. I'm an American soldier. I want to be turned over to the military." He said, "Well, I'm trying to save you from having to walk so far." I said, "Walk me where you have to walk me. I'm a soldier. I want to go to the military." So next thing I know, somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Come." And they started running. And without thinking, I started following them. And then I remembered the guy with the gun. And I looked back, and the crowd grabbed him and beat the living daylights out of him. So there was a young kid. He couldn't have been more than 18. And he took me into the woods where they had a pit dug, similar to the thing where they found Sedan. He put me in there, and it was camouflage, of course. And he told me he'd be back later. And later in the night, they came back and wondered if I was hurt, and I was hurting pretty bad. So the following night, they had a doctor come in.
Right before you got turned over, what was happening?
So because your guy
On the
was
way,
taking you through the border.
to bringing me down. They just turned me over we just crossed into Belgium, and they turned me over to the Belgian people, and in Antwerp, and we were there for. Well, they kept me there, I guess, for about a week there also, until they could get another person to come get me and take me. There were two of us, and take me to supposedly to France at the base of the Pyrenees. Instead, he wanted to know names of the people that helped me get that far.
Yeah.
And where did I go down? Of course, I wouldn't tell him any of that. And when I wouldn't tell him of that, he told me, "You don't trust me, I can't trust you." But after he said that, then we were walking down the street, then he heads me right to a building with German guards, soldiers right outside. And as he turns me to them, they pop too. So apparently he'd been turning a lot of people in.
Oh my gosh.
And so that was it. And then of course, in there, they wanted to know, who I was. And of course, I was a little concerned then because I was in civilian clothes with fake papers, and all I could see was, it's probably the end.
Yeah, I assume
right.
they thought you were a spy.
Right. So
minimum.
Anything, yeah.
So anyway, they interrogated me and wanted to know who I was. I gave them name, rank, serial number, which is par for the course. And then they wanted to know when I went down. I told them I couldn't remember, and that confused them apparently because this was 4.5 months after I was shot down.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm sure they had a little bit of. So they said, I don't know what they said in German, but wound up putting me in solitary for a week. And
were you still injured at this time?
Oh no, I was hurting, but I'm not bad.
Yeah.
So you're 4 months. You got a couple broken ribs.
That's all. They healed up pretty
And
well.
your
Yeah.
back.
Well, that never did get broken. That was just
Okay.
hurt.
So you were sore.
Yeah.
Very
right.
sore.
Right.
Yeah.
And where exactly in Germany where is this happening? Where they turned you over at?
Well, it was called Dulag Luft, but it was.
Is it more of it's more north?
More north,
Germany,
yes.
Right? Okay.
And so, of course, we spent the night in Belgium in a prison there when they captured us, and they put us on, gave us straw ticks to sleep on. And tick's a good name for it because, man, next morning we had things crawling all over us.
I can imagine.
And then they loaded us on trains, on the old 40 and 8s, and put 60 of us on there and took us to Dulag. And then from Dulag, they called us in for questioning. Then after questioning, then they sent us to prison camp, and according to your rank. Now, they did make the offer to myself that, and probably to others, that if I wanted to, I could go to the officers' camp as an aide. And I said, no way. I would never I didn't quite look at officers as being the nicest people in the world, really. So I said, no, I'll go with my bunch.
Yeah.
So I went to the non-coms camp, and which was up and went there by train.
Now, at this time, you're still a staff sergeant, right?
Tech.
Tech sergeant.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I went there by train again, and there was a mile from the train to the camp, and so they had all these looked like Hitler Youth lined up with what do you call police dogs, German shepherds, and told us to start running. And as we started running, they'd sick the dogs on us until we got up to the camp.
Great.
And so when we got inside the camp, they were just building another compound to the camp because they're getting so many prisoners, they couldn't keep up with it. And so they had us in tents. And so the camp commander, the American camp commander, came down and said, look, I want all you guys to ditch these tents. And when you do, put the dirt in a hat and take it over to this point and dump it. And so that's what we did. And of course, the Germans, when they saw that, figured we were tunneling. So they doubled up the guard and came in with the long spikes hunting for a non-existent tunnel and so forth. And
What month was this now?
This was in February.
Oh my gosh.
No, wait a minute. No, not February. This was July.
Oh,
In
well, that's even
Poland.
worse.
Right.
In Germany or in Poland?
Yeah.
In Germany.
This would be
Inside Germany.
yeah. This up in this is up in Poland.
It's in Poland.
Großschau,
So they
Poland.
transferred you.
Right,
Prisoner
where
of
they
war
transferred
camp
me.
was
The
in
prisoner of war
Poland.
camp. Yeah.
Got it. In July is hot.
Yes. Yes.
Intense.
So anyway, we were told to annoy them as much as we could, but don't get shot. Because being where we were, to escape, we either had to go all the way across Germany to the British lines or the American lines, or head for Switzerland. And not speaking the language or anything, it just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things we did to annoy them. And the other thing, the only other big thing we did to annoy them that I recall, we had these German guards without weapons that would mix among us in the compounds and acting like they couldn't speak English, but they spoke better English than we did. So we started talking about a break that was going to take place. And we had these few guys that were going to try to get out of there, and it was going to take place at a certain time. And we kept talking it up, and then finally, the night that it was supposed to happen, we all went to bed, and all of a sudden all the lights come on, all the guns are swung around, they broke out all the every guard they had back into the place, and but before this happened, word came down from our commander, everybody shaved their heads, because when we were talking, we were telling them these 6 guys would be able to recognize each other because they're going to shave their heads. Well,
And
we all
how
fall
many,
out.
How many people are there total, you think?
Well, in that compound must be about 200.
Okay.
So we all fall out, and then the commandant, he comes out, real in his fancy, and they did have fancy uniforms, fancy German
I
uniform.
just can't get Hogan's Heroes out of my head right now.
And he says, "Take off your hats," so they could grab these 6 guys. Took them off. It was at least, I know there had to be, in the whole camp, there had to be close to at least 3,000 bald heads flashing in the moonlight. So
That's great.
at that point he knew he'd been had. So he got even with us. He made us stand out there with those bald heads in that cold weather. And but that was the end of it. That's the only punishment we got out of it, other than having our rations cut again. I mean, that was always a favorite one. Either cut our rations, or they gave us, I think, 6 little blocks of something that we could put in a stove that didn't last any time at all. That was our daily ration. And
So were these German soldiers in Poland, in the camp?
oh yeah,
How did they treat you in general? Like what
in
kinds-
general, great, because it was all Luftwaffe.
So
It was a
okay.
Luftwaffe camp,
Got
and there was a big difference between the Luftwaffe and the German army.
Yeah.
And,
so there was like some kind of like mutual respect.
Camaraderie there, yeah. And except for a few nuts that you always had.
Yeah.
We had one big guy, they called him Big Soup. He used to like to walk around, come up behind you, take his hands and box your ears. He broke, I don't know how many guys' eardrums just doing that. And so anyway, finally we started hearing a lot of artillery. The Russians are catching up. So the first order they get is from execute all prisoners. But everybody thought differently about that for some reason. And then the next thing we know, it's evacuate the camp. So they broke us down into 200 groups and moved us out. They gave us the Red Cross parcels, which they weren't giving us regular. It's supposed to be 1 per man for a week.
Yeah.
They were giving us 1 for 3 men, but they gave us each as many as we could carry.
Okay.
Well, of course, under each arm, with what you own on you and you're walking,
Yeah.
we didn't get far with those. So break them open, take the chocolate out, and
What all was in one of those?
oh, you had chocolate, cigarettes, toilet paper,
Cigarettes.
canned some kind of canned good, not like a,
Sardines or
oh no, tuna.
okay.
I had to have tuna.
Yeah.
Or in some kind of stew in some of them.
Okay.
It was a good ration that they
Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
The British had the better one though. They had canned chicken.
Mm.
And but anyway, we went as far as we could. We had to scrounge our food as we could. So they put us in barns. We'd go in the loft and get the wheat and get the just the kernels out and fill our pockets or a spare sock if we had it, and we'd eat that on the road, or we'd barter. We had cigarettes, barter with the farmer to get what we could from him.
And where are you going at this point?
Who knows?
No, they don't tell
Are they
you.
just leading you?
Nobody knows.
You're
Not
walking
even.
day
Not
in.
even. Not even the guys leading us.
You're
Yep.
just walking day in
Walking.
and day out.
That's it. Yep. Oh, we get to this one farm, and so we figured we're going to raid the chicken house,
Yep.
get some eggs. Well, somebody beat us to the chickens, to the eggs.
Yeah.
So we snagged a chicken,
Yeah.
but then they wouldn't let us build the fires. So we broke down into groups of 3.
Mm-hmm.
So my 2 buddies and I said, well, golly, we can carry it with us. I don't know how long it'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
I said, so we wrung its neck. And I
Yeah.
said, so while we're in the dark here, let's cut its head off and bleed it out. I said, and then it'd be better.
Yeah.
So that's what we just shut up and wrung it out, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and carried it with us the next day. And they let us build fires.
Now you grew up in Baltimore.
Yes.
Have you? Was this something that you guys did? You guys have chickens as a kid? Or did,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you did
Oh,
in
yeah.
Baltimore.
Yeah, Mom used to buy them from a Arabber. Come around, and I'd take this one, that one, and that one, and
Yeah.
they'd cut the heads off, throw them in the old wash tub, flop around, then we'd put them in the pot, steam them, and
Yeah, yeah.
So this wasn't your first rodeo.
No, it wasn't your
No.
first time. Yeah. So you know what you're doing.
Right.
You know what you're doing.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
so anyway, they let us build fires, but we couldn't cook that chicken where it would show. So we just scooped out the ground, just a very light scoop, and set the chicken in there, built our fire over the chicken. And it let it go for quite a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then we knocked the fire off, and of course all the feathers and all came, and the skin came off with it. But we hadn't had a chance to clean that chicken either, so the entrails were still in it.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how it smelled.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But it didn't matter. We cleaned the entrails out, and then we ate that chicken. And so when I came home, I didn't want to see chicken on that table. For about 6 months, I couldn't stand the sight of chicken.
Yeah.
But anyway, we finally, as I said, sleep in the fields, barns, and of course you go in a barn. If you're lucky enough to be at the head of the column, you get the fresh straw. If you're not lucky enough, you get the straw that they've cleaned out of the stalls. And if you ever slept in straw that has horse manure in it,
Yeah.
then you know what I'm talking about. You break into a real deep, clammy sweat.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And your whole body sweats like crazy. And then all these little lice start playing some kind of games on you.
Great.
Because we had body lice like you wouldn't believe. I mean, body lice and diarrhea were our 2 biggest
Yeah.
things.
What
we
were you
did.
doing for water?
They did furnish us water. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they had a water
Okay.
truck. And every once in a while, we'd get some food from them, bread or potatoes. But most of the time, we had to scrounge for food.
And how many guys are on this walk?
200.
200.
Oh, there's about 10,000.
10,000.
Yeah, well, they're from the whole camp was evacuated.
So 200
But they're all in
groups,
different walks. Yeah.
200 groups.
Right,
Of 10,000 people.
right.
Okay.
So anyway, we finally went to bed one night, and when we woke up, no guards. And so we're wondering what the heck's going on. Next thing you know, here comes a bunch of limeys walking up the road, and told us,
I
that
bet
was
you
it.
were excited to see him.
Go down the road, Yank, and you'll find us down the road there.
Wow.
So I went down the road, and they gave us just something to munch on.
Yeah.
They wouldn't give us much to eat. And then they told us they had to get us cleaned up because, man, for 3 months we hadn't even seen water for a bath.
Mm-hmm.
And so they cleaned us. They took our uniforms off, our clothes off, threw them out the window, and they burned them. And then they sent us through delousing with that powdered stuff. Yeah, every place you had hair, you got hit,
Yeah.
except for the head. But we figured, it's good. So when we come out, they just before they slap the hat on you, they give you a big blob right in the middle of your head, and they gave us all a British uniform. Now this was on May the I guess it'd be May the 9th. When the war end? May the 8th. Yeah, so it'd have to be May the 9th. And so the war ended on May the 9th.
Wow.
So they gave us each a $10 bill and let us go into Brunswick. And
So one day, you're a POW.
yes,
Next
day
day,
we're
they're
free.
giving you a $10 bill and sending you into Brunswick.
Right,
In
exactly.
a British uniform.
Right. And we were sort of at a disadvantage because it was VE Day,
Yeah.
and these gals loved the GIs. They didn't care much
Because
for
they
them.
thought you were
They didn't
British.
care much for the Brits.
That's hilarious. I'm not British. Trust me.
I swear.
I'm from South Baltimore.
Yeah. Yep, that was a really disappointing time. Came back with
Worst
our
time
$10.
of the war. Worst time
Yep.
of the war.
Right.
He came back with $10.
Yep. So then I don't remember whether they put us on buses or, I think they put us on buses. I don't remember flying, and took us down to Calais
Mm-hmm.
and Harvard, Le Havre, France. And they put us on a Liberty ship, and we started a 13-day trip across the water to get back home,
And where'd you come in at?
New York.
What were your thoughts when you were coming into New York?
Well, I couldn't believe it because we hit a storm on the way in. I figured, I know they're going to get me. Yeah, I'm going to drown when this thing goes down.
One way or another. They're
That
trying
old
to get
Victory ship had those expansion plates, which I wasn't familiar with. And I see that thing doing this,
Mm-hmm.
I figured this thing's going to break in half and we're all going to die. So anyway, we pull up the harbor and all the ships that had anchored blowing their horns, because it was all ex-POWs on the boat. And then these gals on these little pleasure launches in bikinis come out circling the boat with the records playing "Don't Fence Me In."
Wow. Well, that must have been a sight to see.
It was. And then they docked, and we went to Fort Lee, or to Fort Dix.
Fort Dix,
Yeah.
New Jersey.
Yeah.
And there they, well, in the Havre, we only stayed there a few days, but we were on emergency rations because they figured that their stomachs had shrunk so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
But by the time we got to Dix, we were okay, so he gave us a nice big steak dinner. And then he gave us a telephone that we'd call home, get somebody to come get us.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
Well, who was the first person that you called?
we'll call Mom.
You called Mom.
Yeah, because 4.5 months, all she knew was I was missing in action.
Wow.
So
did they notified her that you're playing
yes,
that down?
I'll show you all that. It's
Okay.
I've got the original telegram and the letters they sent her.
Wow.
What did your
They-
mom say?
But she said she knew I wasn't dead. But too hungry to die, I guess.
They can't kill you.
Right,
They
but no, they sent the telegram initially stating that I was missing in action.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then they followed that up with a letter stating that missing in action meant that they just didn't know my whereabouts.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd let her know that correspond with her again later.
Yeah.
And I guess about 30 days later or so, they sent her another letter, said no further word. And then the next letter that they got said that parachutes were seen coming from the aircraft. And then, of course, then that was followed with one from the Red Cross stating that I was a prisoner of war And then finally, a last one state had been turned back over to military control.
Oh, okay.
But I've got most of that in all these books laying around
Okay.
here.
Now, tell me about, because I've always been curious about this. How did the Red Cross make contact with the POWs while under German control?
They had, what would you call it? Groups of people, 3 or 4 people that would come in and inspect the camps. And we knew when they were coming because they'd issue us all a nice warm blanket. And when they left, they took it back.
So you knew that the Red Cross was
Yes,
coming
right.
soon, yeah.
And of course, you didn't dare say anything to them.
Right.
Because if you did, I mean,
Well, we all know what happened with Jane Fonda.
Yeah,
So
right,
you don't want
yeah.
to tell anybody.
right, yeah.
You know, we live in this country where a lot of the younger generations, we've been safe for a while now, and we haven't been in any major wars. So you got to experience Pearl Harbor getting attacked, and that changed everyone's mindset. But the current generation of young people, they don't understand that at all, and they don't respect what you and other people have done. John is also a veteran, and and we just got to keep telling these stories,
Right.
because in the future, people will say, oh, well, that never happened,
Right.
and no, it actually did. Like, this is your story,
Right.
and it's important to just tell it, and so that's why we're doing this. So thank you.
Yeah, I
You're
really
more than
appreciate
welcome, I'm
everything.
sure.
So.
Thanks for coming by.